Serious, what's a scummy thing a company did / is doing that people should be talking about more? Serious, what's a scummy thing a company did / is doing that people should be talking about more? I might be biased, but some of the replacements they've hired for media personalities like O'Toole and Natasha just pale in comparison. I know not everyone loved the Jay and Dan show, but it's hard to argue that it's better with just Jay. It isn't. And let's not forget they did this immediately after their Let's Talk campaign ended for the year, a campaign that spotlights mental health. The optics behind this decision, the timing of it, the points you mentioned, all reeks of a boardroom full of execs looking to earn another few pennies per share at the expense of these people. So many corporations are run by truly sadistic sociopaths who just don't give a fuck about anything except short-term gains. DuPont dumping chemicals into the water supply for decades. DuPont's own documentation specified that C8 was not to be flushed into surface waters, but the company did so for decades. The chemical seeped into the water supplies of the communities of Lubec and Little Hocking, immediately west of Parkersburg, and the city of Belpre, Ohio, just across the river, and 3 other water systems. In 2004, DuPont paid $70 million in a class action lawsuit and agreed to install filtration plants in the affected water districts. In 2005, it reached a $16.5 million settlement with the EPA for violations of the Toxic Substances Control Act. A collective decision was made to use the money won in the class action suit to conduct an epidemiological study in which nearly 70,000 of the 80,000 plaintiffs stopped into one of 6 clinics set up throughout the community, provided their medical histories and offered their blood. They were each paid $400. A science panel, comprised of public health scientists appointed by DuPont and lawyers representing the community, was convened to examine the immense database. In 2012, after 7 years of study, the panel released a report documenting a probable link between C8 and 6 conditions: testicular cancer, kidney cancer, thyroid disease, ulcerative colitis, pregnancy-induced hypertension, and high cholesterol. In 2015, DuPont spun off its chemical division into a new company called ChemOurs, which now occupies the Washington Works facility on the Ohio. In 2017, DuPont and ChemOurs agreed to pay $671 million to settle some 3,500 pending lawsuits. ChemOurs was cited in 2019 by the EPA for the release of unregulated chemical compounds in West Virginia and North Carolina. C8 was recently found in the blood of polar bears. C8 is in the blood of 99% of the American population. So far, not a single person has been charged with a crime. I ordered a TV on Amazon from Best Buy to be shipped via FedEx. My husband was literally sitting on the porch when FedEx sent him a text that the package was just delivered. We check around the block and ask our neighbors. We call FedEx, who tells us to wait 48 hours before calling again. 48 hours pass and we call again. They say, well, if we said it was delivered then obviously it was delivered. I asked them to see if they could check with the driver. They tell me that because it was a contractor and not a FedEx employee, they couldn't check with him until he got back into the office 4 days later. I filed a complaint with Amazon, who graciously gave a full refund. Even worse, this was the second time I have had an expensive electronic device go missing in a truck driven by a contractor. Fuck FedEx. This is not just in Mississippi. I worked at Frito-Lay in Washington and it was the worst job I ever had. I worked 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you could work until 3 a.m. and be brought back in early the next day. The only good part about it was that I was making overtime after 8 hours. Overall, it just was not worth it. I wore steel-toe boots for so long that I had terrible infections and my work area regularly went over 100 degrees Fahrenheit and we had to wear work pants, bump caps, and steel-toe boots. This was seriously the worst job I ever had. It was also incredibly unsafe. In the short time I was there, 2 people lost their fingertips, 1 guy almost lost his whole hand, parts would fall from above, we had rats, it was super nasty and dirty, and I fell due to faulty equipment that I had reported, and the company refused to pay for the surgery I needed on my wrist after I fell. Back when I worked at Logan's Steakhouse, they didn't get me into the computer the whole week I trained. They told me to write my times down and turn them in daily, so I did. I get my first check and the 30 hours I trained aren't there. Only my serving hours at $2.13. I complain for months and they say they can't give it to me all at once, as that would put me in overtime and make it time and a half on the training base pay. They say they'll have to just add a few hours to each check. I reluctantly agree, except this doesn't even happen. Others have the same thing happen. Kitchen employees were being forced to clock out at 10 whether or not they were done working, and may have to stay till 11 or 12. Years later this becomes a lawsuit known as the off-the-clock class action suit against Logan's. I sign up and the attorney tells me there is zero record of me ever working there, even using my SSN and store number. Fuck Logan's. It is common in many dental practices for hygienists, the people who clean your teeth every 6 months, to be paid per patient, not an hourly rate. What this inevitably leads to is hygienists treating patients for significantly less time than the recommended standard. It should take roughly 45 minutes to an hour for a proper teeth cleaning. The dental office I previously worked at proudly advertised a 20-minute cleaning for adults, something that might seem convenient for those not knowing that they're literally getting fucked over. Keep an eye at how long your hygienist visit takes each time, and if they're whipping you in and out of there in 20 minutes, please consider finding a new dentist. Dentistry is one of the only medical fields where a quick visit is usually a poor visit. It is common in many dental practices for hygienists, the people who clean your teeth every 6 months, to be paid per patient, not an hourly rate. What this inevitably leads to is hygienists treating patients for significantly less time than the recommended standard. It should take roughly 45 minutes to an hour for a proper teeth cleaning. The dental office I previously worked at proudly advertised a 20-minute cleaning for adults, something that might seem convenient for those not knowing that they're literally getting fucked over. Keep an eye at how long your hygienist visit takes each time, and if they're whipping you in and out of there in 20 minutes, please consider finding a new dentist. Dentistry is one of the only medical fields where a quick visit is usually a poor visit. Amazon actually kills small businesses, and I know this firsthand from working in logistics. There are a number of small businesses out there who make their products in China, and use Amazon Marketplace to get their feet off the ground and push tons of inventory hoping to make it big. Lo and behold, the moment an item starts getting big, Amazon will take that item, manufacture it in their own warehouse, brand it as Amazon Basics, and then will sell it literally for a fraction of the cost, completely cutting the small business out of the equation and making it impossible for them to sell their inventory just because their prices are so low. Fuck them. Took them like a year to get my mother her money. They couldn't find my grandmother's account for like 6 months. In their slight defense, it was an account they acquired from a bank they bought. And repeat that 3 times. So it was an account that had been inherited like 4 times by the time Wells Fargo got it. But once they found it, the rest of it was a shit show. Even though my mother had a will and had proof my grandmother had died, they wouldn't let my mother have access. It to a judge injunction to force Wells Fargo to allow my mother access so she could split up the money to family. I will never bank with them, ever. If they are the only bank left in America, I will just do cash. Companies involved with the gig economy. Amazon loves when you deliver packages for them in your own car. They don't have to pay for maintenance or anywhere near the cost for an employee. Last I checked, Rev.com was paying 30 cents per audio minute for audio transcriptions. If it takes you 4 minutes to transcribe 1 minute of audio, not too bad for a QWERTY keyboard, then congrats, Rev will pay you $4.50 an hour. That doesn't include the time it takes you to find a job with decent audio. Those just starting out can expect to make $1 to $2 an hour. With these gig jobs, you're not making jack shit, and you get no medical, dental, or vision coverage. It's like the first world version of a sweatshop. Any printer company and their ink. Printers have not had any actual innovation in the last 10 years. All printer updates/upgrades are purely to sell another printer and more ink. They put chips on them to make near impossible to refill them. They change the design of the physical cartridge so that you can't swap them. They have specific colors for their inks and they add specific things to their ink to have a different flow rate. They then try to take legal action on people who can recreate this color/weight of ink. When you buy a printer, you are buying it with an ink cartridge that is usually half or less than half full. The ink is designed to dry up. All of this applies to toner printers too, but apply the ink idea to a powder instead. So custom powders that heat/dry at specific temps. Apple claims to be a green company and has done so for years. However, their phones create more waste that's harder to process than most any other material. Apple refuses to sell parts to repair shops and actively is fighting against your rights to do with your device as you please. Apple bullies developers on the platform with a monopoly on apps, stores, and other interactions with the phones. So they tax your $1 donation to that app developer for a coffee for 30 cents. They actively try to make it harder for repair shops to source parts for devices by partnering and paying the customs department, giving them access to tools and knowledge on where to find logos on boards that most people don't know where to look. Even people who have been doing this for years. John Deere refuses to sell parts to repair shops and actively is fighting against your rights to do with your tractor as you please. Locks features behind software updates that are included in contracts, but they have to be applied by techs that cost $1,000 or more to come do the update. They actively fight against your right and ability to repair your own tractor. GE. They do not give you access to the parts that they sell to companies like Home Depot and others to repair your own appliances. No real innovation for the last 10 years. Even worse, they have blatantly false and misleading video ads for products. I reported 1 month ago only to find the ad has now popped back up with the clips showing the impossible/non-existent functionality have been dramatically shortened to about 1 second. Unbelievable. Now trying to report the video, I get no form to type what's wrong, a list of concerns to pick from. No comments on the video, no like/dislike. It's just they're uncritically lying to potential customers and YouTube/Google is doing nothing about it. Their medical misinformation policy is also mind-boggling. Care to point out that CNN or New York Times are violating YouTube policy? Your video/channel gets taken down. Astounding. YouTube is a garbage platform and it needs to be replaced. Don't even get me started on Facebook. I'm a small business owner who uses FB as a primary point of contact with customers. For the last 2 years I've gotten 95% of my orders through my business page with no problems. 3 weeks ago my personal account was disabled with no explanation, just that I violated community guidelines. They gave me a chance to request a review, except they made it exceptionally difficult to do so. I got error after error message, locked out of my account, sent several emails and never heard a word from anyone. After 2 weeks of trying to fight for this account, I'm finally able to log in and they say that my account has been permanently disabled, my personal and business pages have been wiped from existence. After 2 years of hard work I've lost hundreds of customers. I've started all over and it's been a real bitch, this is my livelihood. After doing some digging I found that someone made unauthorized purchases with my business card through Facebook. So someone spent $28 of my money and got my account locked. I had no way to explain this to FB, so maybe they could reverse the decision to disable my account. Facebook has no security, I had 2FA set up, hackers can apparently still get in. They do this to hundreds of people every day, hell there's a thread of people asking the same thing every day. Tons of us have lost our accounts, the majority are business owners. This keeps happening and FB hasn't done a damn thing. Lord knows what they actually do with our information. There's no way to contact Facebook, no phone number, No one answers emails. If you can't get into your account, you can't contact support. At this point it feels like they're letting hackers/scammers into our accounts, probably for money. I honestly feel like Facebook is a front for some bigger seedy business. We won't get into details, but it rhymes with mild checks packaging. I'm so tired of big companies shitting on the little guys who can barely stay afloat. I'm so tired of all of these companies selling our information and leaving us to figure out how to protect ourselves. I'm pretty sure all the breaches we get from Microsoft and other companies is just them getting caught selling our info and they say they were compromised. This shit is insane and we keep letting it happen. Even after all of this hell I've gone through, I still made another FB account to try to find my customers. I have a couple of rough drafts typed up to send to my local news stations, BuzzFeed and any other online news source I can think of. I'm really sick of being taken advantage of for using a free service that these companies offer. TLDR: no security, no way to contact anyone equals no accountability equals Facebook fucking sucks, but I still have to use it for my business. Sort of. Millions of hard-working Americans took on loans for houses they could never afford, and yes, maybe shouldn't have been able to qualify for. The investment banks you mentioned took these shaky, unlikely to be paid back, poorly collateralized loans and repackaged them as grade A debt assets other banks could buy and count on money coming in from loans/interest being paid off. The refs were supposed to be the credit rating accounting agencies like Moody's who slapped a AAA rating on these so they would maintain their relationships/contracts and not bite the hand that feeds them. All very shady and horrible, but let's not pretend someone forced those Americans to take out mortgage loans they had no business taking and could not afford. Almost every call center out there is moving towards employing only people hired via employment agencies. Those agencies lie and say their employees are independent contractors, which is supposed to be things like plumbers or electricians, people who work for themselves, right? Well, the tax code for that is 1099, and it means that the employee is solely responsible for paying their taxes. Normal employees under a W-2 pay less in taxes because the company pays some of it. This lie saves the company and the employment agency money and puts the full tax burden on the employee. Is it illegal? Technically yes. But to report it, an employee has to fill out a big huge IRS form that warns them that false reports will be prosecuted. It's possible that some companies will lie when the IRS follows up on these to try and escape fines and also get the whistleblower in trouble. Plus, of course, they will fire them. This is a part of why whenever you call a company's customer service or tech support, it is a horrible experience. None of these companies want to spend money on such services, so they are horribly understaffed by overworked people with barely any training at all, who are all abused by the company and the shitty customers. Think Karens, only they're smoking crack, in countless different ways. Those employees just want to get past the calls with the least amount of soul-crushing experiences. They just don't give a fuck anymore. I could go on and on about the ways companies abuse people in these, but Reddit comments can only hold so much text. Basically everything Wells Fargo has ever done for most of its very long history. It's pretty much always been a garbage company, and they get away with causing so much damage it's almost unbelievable. People heard the Wells Fargo loan scandal from a few years ago, and most people seemed to get the impression that it was a few branches of the bank getting so competitive that they signed a few customers up without them knowing. Nope, it was literally thousands of people, many of whom suffered long-lasting financial damage or even total ruin. Many victims are still fighting for restitution, and the response of the CFPB was severely limited by pressure both the legislative and the executive branches. And that's just one of uncountable shitty things they've done. They've been caught trying to foreclose on and repossess houses that had their mortgages paid off decades ago. They are a fucking cesspool of an organization. For more information, I can't recommend the episode of the Dollop podcast about Wells Fargo. The scope of Wells Fargo's crimes is staggering.